Hello, welcome to the You and You podcast with me, Sanjiv Sangha. Every episode, I look at a word and how it shaped my life, and then how I've worked through it in hope to give you some tips or just some information about it of potentially ways to work through it. Today's episode is on anxiety. Anxiety came up recently in a school that I went to, and it was a challenge that a few girls in that group were facing. There has been an increase in anxiety over the years, which I feel has had more of an impact since COVID. Have you or someone close to you known or experienced it? And so, why am I talking about it? I've gone through it, and at moments I still go through it. I have smaller cycles of it because I'm aware of it and what it does to me and my triggers. So, I'm going to discuss a little bit about it and then what I did to help myself. I think it's good to know a little bit about this because even if you haven't had it, and I hope that you don't have it or won't go through it, you may know somebody who's close to you that has it, and you can help signpost them in the right direction. Some of these things may just be good to put into practice for yourself. Get into the moment, get into a healthy routine. So, what is anxiety? To understand anxiety, we need to understand what stress and depression are, because to me, they're part of the same sort of family. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension from adverse or demanding circumstances. It's a demand that is placed on your body or your brain. A frustration and nervousness about an event can trigger it. Depression is a little bit more long term. There's that constant feeling of sadness, emptiness, and a loss of interest in your normal activities, and it lasts a bit longer. It may be that it's not the result of one single event, and it has the potential to create anger and the feeling of being on edge. That's a summary. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, fear or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. It's about something in the future. 12% of the UK's population suffer with anxiety at any one point, and that's about 8 million people. When we look at the statistics of last year, 67% of people in between the ages of 16 to 24 were experiencing symptoms of anxiety, and 61% were experiencing symptoms of depression. This increases for women, and generally the numbers start declining as the age ranges increase, but they don't drop that much. And around 76% of the population was experiencing symptoms of stress. These figures are taken from a Champion Health website. This shows you just how important our mental health is. So how do I fit into this? I was 16 or 17 when I think I experienced my first panic attack. My father had had a mini stroke and he had started fitting as a consequence and was in hospital. Our home became very unstable at that point. And prior to that, there was always turmoil in the home. And that's due to partially cultural expectations, it being such a big family, with strong personalities, and the age range was substantial. My parents are old enough to be my grandparents, especially in that era and the time that I was born. Thankfully, I've only had the odd panic attack since. I then have to look at pressure, and oh boy, did I like pressure. I treated it as my friend to get my work done. I am lastminute.com all over. Even this is a little bit last minute, especially when I was at uni at school. I was much more interested in having fun than getting on with my work at a good pace. And it was self-applied. I used it as a tool to finish a project and meet a deadline. The quality of my work was nowhere near the standard it should have been. Stress, working as an architect, was always there. There was always an insane amount of work to do. And whilst there was a steady pressure, it became stressful for me when I was expected to do exceptional amounts of work. And that would include picking up my colleagues' work. And I felt that was impacting my life really excessively. My boundaries were eroded. I didn't really know how to say no. And I would have times of burnout when my body and mind just decided it needed a break and would physically make me stop. The stress turned into anxiety when I changed roles, where I was previously just working in architecture, looking after just the construction of buildings. I now went into a job where I was looking after loads of different areas. And I was completely under resourced again, like I was in architecture. And then I had a substantial accident at work where I couldn't work for about 6 weeks. I had broken a bone. And then when I came back, I decided to utilize the mental health services and I started having therapy, and everything came crashing down as I was reflecting on the foundations of my life. And then to top it off, I started having issues with my boss. And I think that's when my anxiety started. And I also suppressed the fear of the building that I had, and that stayed with me. And I didn't really know I had it until the day I left, which was 18 months later. That was a lot of depression. What are the symptoms you've had that you're aware of or that you've seen people close to you experience? On the NHS website, they include and are not limited to some of the following: irritability, dizziness, feeling sick, dry mouth, faster, stronger or irregular heartbeat, feeling on edge, a sense of dread, restlessness, tiredness, insomnia, headaches, muscle aches, tension, stomach ache, pins and needle, trembling and shaking, and shortness of breath. That's a lot, huh? Thankfully, it's not all at the same time, and it might be to different degrees. Or you might not have any of that. My symptoms were where, for example, the NHS website might say feeling on edge. For me, that was like going for a walk in the park was becoming more difficult because people had loads of dogs and I was scared of them. And this got worse. But I'm glad to say that that fear is over and I can stroke them now. And became very sensitive to external sounds. So when I was walking in the street, for example, and I heard a motorbike, it would make me curl up into a little ball. And driving became difficult because the sounds were so quick and it made me jumpy. So I wanted to do it less and less. And I couldn't watch action films, which I love. In addition to this, it accelerated my medical conditions into a very quick and steady decline. So my cycle became out of sync. I started to have back pains and headaches. I gained weight. I ground my teeth. I found it hard to focus and read books for pleasure. I went into flight, fright, freeze mode quite quickly when anything happened. It was just like, I had substantial sleeping issues. I drank more alcohol. And when I knew I really wasn't well, my vision started to blur and I couldn't see my computer screen properly. And that went on and off. And that was during COVID. Looking back, I clearly let it spiral. And it started to gain momentum and went on for a year or two. With something like anxiety, it's good to look at the circle of control. The circle of control has 3 circles with a central, middle, and outer one. The central circle is your circle of control. It has your personal goals in it, your boundaries, and how much you may want to put into the relationship or any relationship. It's how you choose to communicate and how you respond to things, how you choose to live your life, and your self-care. The next circle outside of that is a circle of influence. I see this as a transactionary one. It's about your relationship with others, whether that's with work, friends, school, university, family, romantic liaisons. It's areas that influence you and that you can influence. And there's always choice in this circle too, about how you interact and what you want to take on board and what you want to give. The Outer circle is a circle of concern, and that may have things like politics in it, news stories, climate change, celebrity. And you can limit what you hear about this and what you expose yourself to. But if you're concerned about the environment, for example, you may decide that you may want to recycle more or live in an eco-conscious way. In relation to politics, you may join a political party, and you can do that at any age. I do believe that it's about challenging your energy into these matters in a positive way rather than stepping into the fear of around the situation. And there's always a lot of propaganda out there as well about these situations. So, you know, it can be hard when you're overthinking it, but take a step back and see what you can do if you want to do something. Anxiety is about your worries and fears for your future, and the ability to take that step back, that you are on the issue that you're fixated about, and to remind yourself of the big picture, it's always more palatable. So, what can you do to alleviate it? Well, I recommend that you seek help from a medical professional and go to your doctors and talk to them about it. Your school and university's webpage will have signposting for mental health services and charities that are in your local area. There's also charities such as Mind, Anxiety UK, Rethink Mental Illness, and they will have access to information about these subjects. Talk to someone, talk to a trusted friend or a family member. My friends were really upset with me because I didn't reach out. Give people the opportunity to help them. That in itself is a kindness. I've been more than willing to help other people, but I haven't necessarily been willing to accept it, adopt it. I don't believe in saying the same thing over and over again. I've done this in the past and I've become ingrained in the story rather than working my way through it. Sometimes you need a sounding board. Sit with it. What are your feelings around that subject? It's okay. You might feel painful. It's good to acknowledge it rather than suppress it. Find a quiet spot and breathe. There's this thing called box breath where you breathe for 4 seconds, then you hold it for 4 seconds, then you release it for 4 seconds, and then you stay empty for 4 seconds. It's good to do this through the nose. And there's lots of other breathing methods that can calm your body and mind. When we have anxiety, we breathe with a shallower breath and we're a bit more higher in our chest rather than from our stomach. Movement is really important, connecting with your physical body. With things like anxiety, we are outside of ourselves with our thoughts about possible future events that aren't necessarily going to occur. So coming back into your body, yoga was an amazing tool for me to help me connect with my body and breath at the same time. It was almost like a meditation, and I still do it. When I was angry and I felt things were way out of my control and I had like really severe anxiety, I went and did boxing, and it was a great way for me to be in the moment and release that energy that I had. With movement, like, something simple as walking. There's lots of green spaces around us. So, going back to nature and connecting with it. I was once asked to do a presentation where I worked on what makes good design in housing. And as an architect, I thought, great, finally something to do a bit more creative. I'm going to smash this. I'm going to talk about fabulous design. And when I went to research it, I was so surprised to find out it was really simple. It was just about our ability to connect to green spaces. And that was about our journey to work or to school and what we saw. So seeing natural greenery. We are natural beings, and being connected to nature has a really good soothing essence for us. And finally, sleep. I will talk about this later and about how to create good sleep hygiene. I've tried many, many things about this to alleviate and work through my anxiety. I sat with it. I created art and craft works. I danced. I did yoga, boxed. I swam. I walked in nature. I took time off work. I did EFT tapping, meditated. I had sound baths, Reiki. I had therapy, I talked about it a little, I journaled, I changed my perspective about the matter. I saw people that I loved and cared about, and I also stopped spending time with people who were not right for me. I did fun courses in things that I was interested about. And as you can see, I did loads of things. Finding something that sparks a bit of joy whilst you're working with the therapeutic elements is a good balance about bringing yourself back into the moment rather than focusing on stories that may or may not happen. And most importantly, I learned that being a kind person means being kind to yourself, as the circle of control shows. I did not know what this meant until a couple of years ago, and basically it's learning about your boundaries and what they are, and understanding that you are the most important person in your life. You can be kind to others without being mean to others. I learned how to speak to myself with love and care. If you need to speak to anybody, please contact your local health services, as I've said, and I've mentioned the websites previously, and also have a look on your university and school's website. I am very excited about the idea of doing some bonus episodes, so please send through your questions that you would like me to answer in an episode on Instagram through direct message on Sanjiv Sangha, or email me at hello@sanjivsangha.com. Please hit the subscribe button if you'd like to listen to more, and thank you for listening. Have a top-tastic day. Yay!